Hello again, folks. Well, I had a conversation recently with a disreputable stamp dealer. And unfortunately, they are out there. And he really hoped two things. He hoped I didn't know what my stamps are worth, and he really didn't want me to know that the price of collectible stamps is going up right now. And the reason is he wanted to make a quick buck off of me. The truth is, it can be really challenging to determine what your stamp collection is worth. And so most folks need to go to a dealer or an expert to determine its value. That, of course, puts the dealer in the driver's seat. Now, I am a stamp collector for many more important reasons to me than dollars and cents. However, I also really dislike it when people are taken advantage of. And so today, I am going to tell you everything I know about how to determine your stamps and your stamp collection's worth, in the hopes that you can get the most out of yours if you ever decide to sell it. Before I begin, I recently offered to give away this collection of stamps to one of you. And thank you to everyone who entered my contest and helped me think about which video I will do next. Sneak preview, I've been eating a lot of maple syrup lately, if that, maybe that gives you a sense of what I'm working on. So let's spin the wheel and see who wins. Congratulations, Stephen K. There is an email address in the description of this video. Please drop me a line. Let me know where to send your stamps to, and congrats. So this was part of a collection that I was given, and I was asked to determine its value. If you have a stamp album, and you want to know what it's worth, the first thing to do is to assess the condition of the book itself. Are the pages nice and clean? Is the book, the cover of it, in good condition? Can it be reused by another collector? That's the big question to ask. If it's the kind of book that can be reused, or built upon if there are stamps inside, then there is some value to the album itself. Not a lot, because used albums aren't all that valuable, but there is some to the book itself. Now this, the Traveler Stamp Album, is an album that I know was for beginner collectors in the 50s, 60s, 70s, somewhere in there. And it was not all that pricey of an album. It's not a name brand that we collectors look for. Those include Scott, Davo, and Minkus. So those are some of the more reputable albums that you'll find. This one is, it's in good condition. It can be built upon. It is great for a beginner collector. So, value of this book, just the book, I'd put it at between $5 and $10. All right, so you've determined what the book itself is worth. Next, I would look at the stamps themselves. Are there a lot of them, first of all? Is it a well-filled album or a more sparsely filled album like this one? If it is a sparsely filled album, meaning maybe there's 100 to 200 stamps, somewhere around there, immediately, even without looking at the individual stamps, if it is a sparsely filled album, I'm going to put it in the price of $20 to $30, regardless of the stamps themselves. Because what that tells me as a collector is that whoever put the book together probably had a packet of stamps, probably wasn't all that dedicated to the hobby. It was a starter collection. Now, what I'm noticing here is these actually were put into the book using mounts. You see these little plastic things right here? These are mounts. So knowing that the collector used mounts means that they actually took their hobby a little more seriously than somebody who just got a packet of hinges and a packet of stamps and put them into the book hither and thither. So this maybe was somebody who took their collection a little more seriously. Oh, look at that cool train stamp. And since they took their collection more seriously, there is a chance that I will find finer stamps in here and stamps that I, as a collector, want. So you're flipping through, noticing, are the stamps in new condition? Have they been unused like that? If they are unused, they are going to command a premium versus used ones. As you're flipping through and looking at your stamps, look to see how many there are, but most importantly, look to see if they're all there. Meaning that none of them have been cut out of the book, removed from the book, and you can tell because there will be hinge remnants left on the page from when somebody came along and cut them out. If they are all here, if the collection is intact, what that means to a collector is that no one else has gone through it first. No one else has gone through the book and cherry-picked it, pulled out the stamps they wanted from their collection, most oftentimes the valuable ones. And so us collectors love an album that has not been cherry-picked, because we get to go through on a voyage of discovery and find cool stamps like those dinosaurs right there. Ah, that's cool. All right, so what I have here, I have an album that is in good condition. It is moderately filled. I'd say between 400 and 500 stamps. They are all here. Many are new, but it's still nonetheless a beginner's collection of stamps, meaning there's not going to be any that are all that valuable or all that high-end, but it is a great opportunity to build upon and maybe find a couple of stamps for topics that collectors like. And I do know that there are a few right there. Nice stamps. Those are really cool panda stamps from China. Those are nice. So, all told, from this book, I'm going to put this in the $25 to $45 range for what I would pay for this book. To you collectors out there, please drop a comment in the comment section below. I'm just giving my advice, my thoughts on how I value stamps. If you have other thoughts, please feel free to let me know. So, I've got a nice collection here. It can be built upon by another collector. $25 to $45, somewhere in there. It was part of a collection that included all of this good stuff. So let's see what I find in here. And to be candid, I haven't really looked all that much at it. All right, so what I see off the bat is year sets from the USA. Let me pull out one and show you what they look like. Oh, these are cool. I like them. Do they have the stamps in them, first of all? They do! All right, so I have yearly sets from the 1970s. What I know about these, they are going to be mint never hinged stamps, meaning they are in the finest condition possible. I love the Sleepy Hollow stamp so much. Look at that. Isn't that great? Happy Halloween upcoming to all of you who are celebrating. So, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these. There are tons of these out there still. And a lot of people squirreled these away thinking that they would be valuable down the road. Unfortunately, these really aren't. And the reason for it is that for us collectors, we probably already have, and the books themselves don't bring all that much value to the collection itself. They also take up a lot of space, so they can be hard for us collectors to store. So what these are to me is these are very fine, nice stamps that are unused and so therefore can be used for postage. Or what I know about unused stamps is that in the collectible market, they are worth about 70% of their face value. If you were to put $1.25 right here, if you were to put $1.25 worth of stamps up on eBay and say that the face value is $1.25, they're new, somebody will probably pay 80 cents for them, 90 cents for them. And the reason is simple. They're not doing it for the collectability of the stamps. They're doing it because they'll use them as postage. And so new unused stamps are worth about 70% of their face value. So for these, if I wanted to determine what these are worth, I would add up the face value and set a price from there. Now, maybe a nice book, this is a nice collectible book, maybe a book like this has some intrinsic value in the book market. It's in brand new condition. It's really cool. It's got some great information on it. You know, so this will add a couple bucks to the value of these. But from the philatelic market, new unused stamps, 70% of their face value. Sheets like this behind there, maybe a little more. All right, so those are the mint sets from the 70s. And again, the main reason why I'm saying 70% of face value is these are so common. They are all over the place, and anyone that's in the market to buy collectible stamps probably already has these. However, we all need postage, and we're all looking for a deal. 70%. All right, here's the rest of the collection. These actually I'm probably most interested in. And look at that. That's cool. Oh, look at that cool sheet. Isn't that neat? I grew up watching the Muppets, and that is really cool. So for a collectible sheet like this, I view this as a collectible item as opposed to postage. So what I would do is I would probably add up the cost of the face value, the total face value, and then say 100% of that is what this is worth, because somebody's going to like this based on the Muppets, based on just the collectability of a souvenir sheet like this. So this to me is a little different than unused postage because it was intended to be collected. There are collectors who focus on sheets like this. So I would put this at 100% face value. What else have we gotten here? So we have unused sheets, all of this. Oh, those are cool. All of these unused modern stamps, I'm going to say are 70% of face value. So if you wanted to determine their worth, what you can do is add it all up times 70%, and there you go. That's what it's worth. Oh, these are cool. I'm going to use these for sure. Wow, there is a lot here. So this is a valuable collection because you add up the cost of the face value and you times it by 70%. All right, so all told, estimate from what I'm seeing here, I'm going to say in the $75 to $80 range. Now, let's move up a bit. Let's look at a finer stamp album. So this is a strand postage stamp album from 1911, maybe, if I'm remembering right. Oh, it was Cyril White's album from 1911. This is actually where my YouTube channel started. And I pointed out that Cyril White was a woman, and I was promptly told that that's a man's name. So apologies to any Cyrils out there. This is a nice early collection of stamps. And in assessing its value, the first thing that I would notice is that it's been cherry-picked. Somebody, me, has come along and cut out some of the stamps that they wanted for their collection. But they also left behind a number of nice stamps. There are good stamps throughout this book that I've yet to put into my collection. I will. But what remains then is a remainder album, meaning that somebody has come along and cherry-picked it, but left behind good stuff. And it does have value, even though it's been cherry-picked. Look at those early Italian stamps. Those are cool. So to determine this kind of book's value, I know that the book itself cannot be repurposed. So there's no value to the book itself. The only value is in the stamps. Option A is I can go through and determine the value of every single stamp. I will discuss how to do that soon. But if I don't want to do that, what I could do instead is I could count all of the stamps in this book. Go through and count all of the stamps and take that number and multiply it by 20 cents. The reason that I've heard 20 cents used in other contexts is because the vast majority of stamps that you find are going to be common run-of-the-mill stamps that are in bad condition that don't have collectible value. So in a book like this, you're going to tend to find poor condition stamps that don't have a high premium in the collectible market. However, there will be a few that a collector will come along and really like. And so the average tends to be in the 20-cent range for the entire book. Drop a comment in the comment section below if you disagree or if you have heard elsewhere other things. But what I have been told is that 20 cents is a good benchmark for determining a collection like this that was put together by a collector. Obviously, somebody collected these, really focused on good stamps. There are valuable stamps in here. There's a lot of pairs, too, which I love. So, in a situation like this, if I wanted to figure... Oh, look at that cool tall stamp. Oh, that's cool. Man, I haven't looked at this book in a minute. So, if I did not want to go through and figure out the value of every stamp within here, I would count the number of stamps, multiply by 20 cents, and that's its cash value. Look at those old Portuguese stamps. This is a great collection. Man, I haven't spent time with this in a minute. I love it. I'm going to return to this book. Look at that great straight... Oh, I got to stop geeking out on stamps. This isn't an informative video. It's not meant to be me geeking out. But you know what? I get a book in front of me. I got to look at some stamps. Oh, I love stamps. All right. So, having done the math elsewhere, I'm going to determine the value of this book just based on that metric. Number of stamps times 20 cents. This is in the $100 range. So to be clear, the reason I'm using that metric on the Strand album is because it was cherry-picked and the album itself is in horrible condition. So therefore, I find it unlikely that I would discover a real treasure in that book, meaning a stamp that is worth $10, $20, $30, somewhere in there. So therefore, that leads me to the conclusion that the easiest and most straightforward approach would be to count the number of stamps, multiply it by 20 cents, and in the right auction, the right setting, that's what I hope to receive for that book. Now, let's say you have an album like this one. This, as I have shown elsewhere on my channel, is a very, very fine collection of stamps. The book itself is in pristine condition, and when you open it up, you know that it was put together by a serious collector. There are some very beautiful stamps. Everything is in its right place. The condition, a lot of them are new. A lot of them are very, very fine condition. And so therefore, if I had this book, I would think that there's a likelihood that I would find valuable stamps in here. And so therefore, I wouldn't want to do a 20 cent per stamp because I might find a stamp that's worth $50, $100. You just don't know. All that I know at this point is that these are very, very fine stamps in a good condition album. And so I would want to learn as much as I can about the value of each individual stamp. This takes work. This takes dedication. It takes time. What you do is you find a catalog, a stamp catalog. There are Scott catalogs like this one. There's also a catalog online at stampworld.com. The first thing to note is that catalogs are not price guides. They are basically what some company would like to sell you their stamps for, and none of us pay their prices. It's kind of the most simple way to think about it. But what they do is they give you a benchmark to go off of for other collectors. So I would go through and I would find the catalog value of the entire collection. And I think it will be worth it because of the strength of these stamps. Then, once I've determined the catalog value, oh, look at those Aiden stamps. My word, this collection is amazing. Then, once I've determined the catalog value, look at that nice, oh, I love that. All right, so I have determined the catalog value for every stamp. Multiply that catalog value by somewhere between 10 and 20%. This is where it gets a little bit controversial because we all have different takes on this. It depends on the condition of the stamp. It depends on the auction setting. It depends on a number of different factors. I tend to think of the value of a stamp as 10 to 20% because that's what I think I, as somebody who isn't a dealer, could sell those stamps for on a site like eBay. Dealers might be able to get more. I'm sure they can. But for me, or for somebody who doesn't have the infrastructure, oh, look at that! I love these stamps. Look at that stamp so much. Oh, that's so cool. Very high-end, nice North Borneo stamp. Oh, I love it. So, for example, that stamp will sell better at a auction by a professional company than it would if I put it up on eBay. And so I think then 10 to 20% of this catalog value is what it's worth to me. Now, as you're going through your collection, and valuing each individual stamp because you've determined it's worth it. Hopefully, what ends up happening is that you fall in love with stamp collecting. And you realize that these stamps are actually worth much more than dollars and cents. These stamps are beautiful works of art with profound history that you can learn about and cherish. However, I do realize that they have monetary value, and it's important for us to know what it is. So, for a collection like this, I would say 10 to 20% catalog value that you can determine if you find your own stamp catalogs or if you go on stampworld.com. Next, let's talk about how I, as a collector, am protecting my collection and ensuring that the person that comes along next has the information they need to either sell it or appreciate it for its value. Maybe my son will, get the bug one day. I want him to know what the stamps are worth that he's receiving. Alrighty, here are some of my finest stamps. I created a system using these cards that allow me to put all of the information I need along with the stamps and then preserve them in top loaders like baseball cards. This really is its catalog value. That says $13,000. Now, I need to verify this, meaning I need to send it to an authentication service to make sure that this stamp is what I think it is. But if it is 114A, that really is its catalog price. So, to determine a stamp's worth like this one, a very fine, very rare, very collectible stamp, I would not go with 10 to 20% catalog value. What I would do is hop on a site like eBay, search for this stamp in its sold listings. Just the sold listings. That will show you what a France catalog number 7 stamp has recently sold for. That will give you a sense of its market as of today. The most collectible stamps, you can realize a higher percentage of catalog value because collectors really want these. And so in the right situation, I know that these can go for more than that 10% range. I mean, the penny black is a great example. That is a very fine penny black. I love it. It's got a nice faint red Maltese cross. It's got wide margins. It's in very fine condition. And so, no, I do not think this stamp is worth 10% of the catalog price of $375. I happen to know that this is worth $100 to $125, somewhere in there. And the reason I know that is because I have looked at recently sold auctions using the advanced search function on eBay to see what people are buying these stamps for right now. Another great example is this one. This is a huge catalog price, $1,750 because it's catalog number 57. It's in decent shape. It's, the condition itself is good. It's off-centered. But I happen to know that this stamp isn't quite as sought after as the penny black because this is the first stamp issued by Great Britain, the first stamp issued postally or issued for postal usage in the world. So there is a premium associated with this one that isn't quite associated with that one. And so the catalog percentage, the percentage of catalog price that I would get for this is different. The only way to know that is to look at recently sold stamps in auctions like eBay. So how do I take all of this knowledge and try to protect myself and my collection? For starters, I eat a lot of maple syrup recently. If you don't know the reference, there is a lot of maple syrup in Canada. And I have been working on my Canadian stamp collection. So what I do with all of this information is I put my collection into stock books like this, essentially replicating a stamp album, but in a stock book. And then I created a do-it-yourself stamp album that allows me to create these little tiny squares on which I can put the catalog value and the condition of the stamp right next to the stamp. And so all you have to do is flip through and you can immediately see which stamps are collectible and sought after, what their condition is, what stamps you need for your collection. I'm not going to review this too closely because I'm going to show you it soon once it's done. But therefore, or that way, I know that all of the information that someone needs to receive this book who doesn't know stamps, but can quickly determine its value. So when they go to a dealer and try to sell their stamps, they can do so from a position of knowing what they have and therefore leveling the playing field a little bit with the stamp dealer in those conversations. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to catalog your stamp collection. And if you'd like to use this system, because I do think it's pretty clever, I have created one for Canadian stamps. And take a look in the description below. Oh, it's tempting to walk through this album because I love it so much, but I won't! I'm just teasing you all because I am going to show you all of this very soon. So the unfortunate truth is there are disreputable dealers out there, and I hope today's video has helped you determine the value of your stamps. I do want to emphasize, though, that stamp collecting can be so much more valuable to you than dollars and cents. It has changed my life. It is how I relax. It is how I connect with people like you. It is how I remember my grandfather. It is so many wonderful things beyond dollars and cents. However, I do think it's important for us to know the value of our collections, especially those of us that spend good money on them, so that whoever gets it next can realize the value in a meaningful way and not be taken advantage of. And I hope today's video was helpful. If so, please do like it and subscribe to the channel. It means a great deal to me. Until next time.